Fantastic. Deja vu. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Living is Dying session 29. I'm Zangmo, one of the Living is Dying presentation team, and later in this session we'll be joined by Tsunma Gosha to share about Tonglen practice. Annie Shempen is doing the tech support. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout Australia or wherever you're practicing from. We recognise their connection to land, waters and culture, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. So I'm going to share the book. Much better. Prayers and Practices. How to Practice Tonglen. And this is taken from a Pema Chodron article which was in the Lion's Roar magazine. Tonglen practice, also known as taking and sending, reverses our usual logic of avoiding suffering and seeking pleasure. In Tonglen practice, we visualize taking in the pain of others with every in-breath and sending out whatever will benefit them on the out-breath. In the process, we become liberated from age-old patterns of selfishness. We begin to feel both love for ourselves and others. We begin to take care of ourselves and others. Tonglen awakens our compassion and introduces us to a far bigger view of reality. It introduces us to the unlimited spaciousness of shunyata, emptiness. By doing the practice, we begin to connect with an open dimension of our being. Tonglen can be done for those who are ill, those who are dying or have died, or those who are in pain of any kind. It can be done as a formal meditation practice or right on the spot at any time. If we're out walking and we see someone in pain, we can breathe in that person's pain and send out relief to them. Usually we look away when we see someone suffering. Their pain brings up our fear or anger. It brings up our resistance and confusion. So we can also do Tonglen for all people just like ourselves, all those who wish to be compassionate but instead are afraid, who wish to be brave but instead are cowardly. Rather than beating ourselves up, we can use our personal stuckness as a stepping stone to understanding what people are up against all over the world. Breathe in for all of us and breathe out for all of us. Use what seems like poison as medicine. We can use our personal suffering as the path to compassion for all beings. When you do Tonglen as a formal meditation practice, it has 4 stages. 1. Flash on bodhicitta. Rest your mind for a second or two in a state of openness or stillness. This stage is traditionally called flashing on absolute bodhicitta, awakened heart-mind, or opening to basic spaciousness and clarity. The second part, begin the visualization. Work with texture. Breathe in feelings of heat, darkness and heaviness, a sense of claustrophobia, and breathe out feelings of coolness, brightness and light, a sense of freshness. Breathe in completely, taking in negative energy through all pores of your body. When you breathe out, radiate positive energy completely through all the pores of your body. Do this until your visualization is synchronized with your in and out breaths. 3. Focus on a personal situation. Focus on any painful situation that's real to you. Traditionally, you begin by doing Tonglen for someone you care about and wish to help. However, if you are stuck, you can do the practice for the pain you are feeling yourself and simultaneously for all those who feel the same kind of suffering. For instance, if you are feeling inadequate, you breathe that in for yourself and all the others in the same boat and send out confidence, adequacy and the relief in any form you wish. the fourth section, expand your compassion. Finally, make the taking in and sending out bigger. If you are doing Tonglen for someone you love, extend it out to all those who are in the same situation. If you are doing Tonglen for someone you see on television or on the street, do it for all the others in the same boat. Make it bigger than just that one person. You can do Tonglen for people you consider to be your enemies, those who hurt you or hurt others. Do Tonglen for them, thinking of them as having the same confusion and stuckness as your friend or yourself. Breathe in their pain and send them relief. Tonglen can extend infinitely. As you do the practice, your compassion naturally expands over time. And so does your realization that things are not as solid as you thought, which is a glimpse of emptiness. As you do this practice, gradually at your own pace, you'll be surprised to find yourself more and more able to be there for others, even for what used to seem like impossible situations. So there's a reference there in Rinpoche's book for the Lion's Roar article, if you would like to see the whole article. When Tsunma Gosha takes you through the practice, she's actually going to be using Sogyur Rinpoche's work, so you're going to be getting some variety, which is great. I'm going to now go to a different page. We're going to cover the section on abortion and prayers for babies. So just bear with me while I change pages. Abortion. What is the Buddhist view of abortion, and how can I help women who have abortions and the aborted beings? Rinpoche replies, aborting a living being is murder. Imagine what it must be like for a baby to be aborted. Bardo beings are desperate to find a new body and to live in a material world. How would you feel if, having struggled for goodness knows how long to enter a body, your own mother consciously kicked you out and had your precious new body flushed away? It is an exceptionally painful experience. Having said that, women who have had abortions or who have encouraged others to have abortions and feel guilt and regret about what they have done must always remember that we ignorant beings are responsible for perpetuating millions of hideous actions over countless lifetimes. Don't allow this single negative action to discourage you or weigh you down so heavily that you end up depressed and helpless. We must all remember all our misdeeds and confess them. At the same time, you now have the opportunity to do some good. Seize the opportunity. Dedicate all your good actions to the enlightenment of the baby you aborted and to all the beings you mistreated, murdered, robbed and raped in the past. You can help women who have had abortions and the aborted beings through Buddhist practice. Start by taking refuge and arousing bodhicitta. In Japan and China, Kshitigarbha is an extremely popular bodhisattva. In Japan, Kshitigarbha is known as Jizo Bosatsu, and in China as Dizang or Tisang. The great bodhisattva famously vowed not to become a Buddha himself until all the hell realms were completely empty. One of the forms he takes is guardian and protector of dead babies and fetuses. If you wish to offer lights, incense and prostrations to Jizo Bosatsu, recite the mantra and dedicate the merit to all aborted babies everywhere and their mothers and fathers. If you have received the appropriate empowerments, you could also recite sadhanas of Avalokiteshvara, Akshobhya and Kshitigarbha Otherwise, you could recite the Kshitigarbha Sutra in whichever language you prefer. Here we have a beautiful image, one of the tiny Jizo statues in the Ahara Nenbutsuji Kyoto. And I just want to share something that I found about this practice. As Jizo, the Bodhisattva, Bosatsu in Japanese, has become one of the most beloved figures of Japanese Buddhism. Stone figures of Jizo populate temple grounds, city intersections and country roads. Often several Jizos stand together, portrayed as small children, dressed in bibs or children's clothes. Visitors might find the statues charming, but most tell a sad story. The caps and the bibs, and sometimes the toys that decorate the silent statues, have often been left by grieving parents in memory of a dead child. Jizo Basatsu is the protector of children, expectant mothers, firemen and travellers. Most of all, he is the protector of deceased children, including miscarried, aborted or stillborn infants. In Japanese folklore, Jizo hides the children in his robes to protect them from demons and guide them to salvation. There we have another statue. And I'm just we're going to recite each of these 3 times, and Winnie will do the last one. Usually someone else does the Japanese, but they're not here tonight, so I'll do it. So the Jizo mantra in Sanskrit: Om ha 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 vismaye svaha. Om ha 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 vismaye svaha. Om ha 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 vismaye svaha. And then the Jizo mantra in Japanese: On kakakabisana me soaka. On kakakabisana me soaka. On kakakabisana me soaka. The Jizo mantra in Chinese. Over to you, Winnie.
南无地藏王菩萨，南无地藏王菩萨，南无地藏王菩萨。
Thank you. I'm just going to put Tsunma Gosha up with me. Welcome, Tsunma Gosha. So wonderful that we got you on here for the first time before we finish our series. It's very wonderful to have you here. I know that you've been moving, so I feel even more fortunate that we still managed to get you to be here. I'd like to share your bio for people that haven't met you or perhaps don't know that much about you. The reason Gosha made a conscious decision to follow Buddhism was because she wanted to be ready for death, something she realized she wasn't prepared for, following a near-death experience as the result of a motorbike accident when she was 19. In 1995, at the age of 34, the teacher and mother of 3 teenage children read Sogyal Rinpoche's book, The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, which started her on her journey with Buddhism. Gosha completed Judyapana's training preparing for death twice and utilised the training when volunteering as a palliative carer with the Kyogle Caring Circle for many years. Gosha began visiting Vajradhara Gompa in Kyogle, northern New South Wales in 2000. She met Zongsa Khyentse Rinpoche and was given her refuge name Gosha in Sanskrit for melody. In 2003, Rinpoche gave her the first stage of vows to become a nun and permission to wear the robes. Gosha then participated in the first 3-year retreat at the Gompa from 2005 to 2008. Since completing retreat, Gosha has been an instructor with Siddhartha's intent. Gosha went overseas for the first time in 2009 on pilgrimage with Judy Appana to India, Nepal and Bhutan. In 2011, she received novice monastic ordination in Bodh Gaya, India, through the auspices of Rabjam Rinpoche, Chanling Rinpoche and Dilgo Khyentse Yangtze Rinpoche. She continued to travel on pilgrimage tours each year, most especially to India and Bhutan, until 2019. She also completed a 10-year program of studies at Shechen Monastery in Bodh Gaya, India. There is some debate about the position of women in the Buddhist world. Traditionally, Tibetan nuns are called Ani, which means auntie. In English, as an alternative, venerable is respectful and a formal title for a monastic, male or female. In classical Tibetan, the term is Tsunma, where the ma is the suffix for a woman and sun means pure, noble, disciplined, learned, virtuous and of good character. This is something that Gosha aspires to. So handing over to you, Summa Gosha, to lead us with the Tonglen practice.
Thank you, Zangmo. Yes, and aspirations are definitely the key point of our lives, I think. It's always said, you are what you think, or it's the thought that counts. And so that's our motivation, and that's what gets us out of bed in the morning, I guess. So I want to just start by expressing my gratitude to Zangmo and especially Sering for getting this program happening. And then to all our teachers who actually keep us there. And especially as the teachers who teach us bodhicitta, because in fact, it's not really a Buddhist teaching if we don't begin with taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. So that's the motivation for us being here. So bodhicitta is, Maitreya's famous quote is that arousing bodhicitta is for the sake of others, longing to attain complete enlightenment. I guess it's a bit like the analogy of being on a plane when they read you all the announcements about what to do in an emergency, and you actually have to put your own air mask on first before you try and help anybody else, because you're not going to be of any use to anyone if you're gasping for breath and dying on the side of it, whatever. So that's why, bodhicitta starts with ourselves. And so, if we want to help others to the path to enlightenment, then we need to know how to get there from our own side as well. So I'll follow some of my notes here. So, Rinpoche talks in his book, Living is Dying, in quite a few sections he mentions Tonglen. When we have feelings of guilt, like if we take, and then for Tonglen, the suggestion there is that we take the guilt of all sentient beings upon ourselves through Tonglen. And what we say to a dying person is, have the power of aspiration. Take the guilt of all sentient beings and bring that onto you through Tonglen. And if we have karmic debts, then we can activate our motivation and our desire to help others by donating to worthy causes or volunteering ourselves. But then with Tonglen, as we breathe out, we offer everything that is good to others. And as we breathe in, Rinpoche says we just hoover up everything that's bad. And so these examples that Rinpoche gives of Tonglen sort of go against the grain of what we're used to in our day-to-day lives. I think, you know, usually what we say, you know, well, I don't want the good, I don't want the bad, I just want the good. So Tonglen actually reverses that. It works with our ego, and it works with our deep desire, our heartfelt aspiration to be helping others. And so in that way, the way to do that is to actually practice Tonglen, where you're actually breathing in and taking on the suffering of others. You're acknowledging it and feeling that. And you do it for yourself also. So if you're feeling sad or miserable or guilty about something, you actually breathe that in. And then a visualization that I like to think of is, as you breathe it in, it sort of goes into the deepest core of your heart, and it's like it's all this black, sooty, revolting, you know, the worst things you can imagine how it looks, how it feels, what it tastes like, and you bring it into the core of your heart, and when it hits your heart, it just dissolves and melts and as it's warmed up by that love that's in your heart, then you've transformed that feeling, and you then breathe out the calmness and the goodness and the love to the people, to you, to either to yourself or to whoever it is that you're practicing for. So that's just a little bit of an overview from me about how I feel about Tonglen and how it works for me. So now I'm just going to read a little excerpt from Sogyal Rinpoche's book, The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And so when we talk about teachers, you know, how we have gratitude to our teachers, a teacher, when he would mention his teachers, he would always clasp his hands and say, oh, that's my wonderful teacher, so-and-so, and I've received beautiful teachings from this teacher, da, da, da. But when he would speak about his teacher, Dhammakirti, he would place his hands above his head, and he would have tears of joy in his, you know, and he would just be so overwhelmed when he would talk about his teacher Dhammakirti, because Dhammakirti was the teacher who taught him about bodhicitta. And I guess for me, when I first came to Buddhism, I discovered it through Sogyal Rinpoche's book. So in a way, that book was actually my first teacher. And you know, I have such, you know, fond memories of the path, you know, the journey that I began on through studying this book. So I'm going to read now a little section which is called How to Awaken Love and Compassion. Before you can truly practice Tonglen, you have to be able to evoke compassion in yourself. That is harder than we often imagine, because the sources of our love and compassion are sometimes hidden from us, and we may have no ready access to them. Fortunately, there are several special techniques that the Buddhist training of the mind in compassion has developed to help us evoke our own hidden love. Out of the enormous range of methods available, Rinpoche, Sogyal Rinpoche here, has selected a few, and I'm going to just speak about one, which is called loving kindness, and he calls it unsealing the spring. So spring in the terms of a water source that's been blocked. So this is unsealing the spring. So you can just make sure you're comfortable, and as you listen to this, it's just a guided visualization here. When we believe that we don't have enough love in us, there is a method for discovering and invoking it. Go back in your mind and recreate, almost visualize a love that someone gave you that really moved you, perhaps in your childhood. Traditionally, we are taught to think of our mother and her lifelong devotion to us. But sometimes if that's problematic, you could think of your grandmother or your grandfather, or anyone, in fact, who's been deeply kind to you in your life. It may even only have been just for one time, and you remember that because that person showed you deep, deep kindness. Remember that particular instance when they really showed you love and you felt their love vividly. Now, let that feeling arise in your heart and infuse you with gratitude. As you do so, your love will go out naturally to that person who evoked it. You will remember then that even though you may not always feel that you have been loved enough, you were genuinely loved once. Knowing that now will make you feel again that you are, as that person made you feel then, worthy of love and really lovable. Let your heart open now and let love flow from it. Then extend this love to all beings. Begin with those who are closest to you. Then extend your love to friends, to acquaintances, and then to neighbors, then to strangers, and even to those whom you don't like or have difficulties with, or even with those you might consider as your enemies. And finally extend it to the whole universe. Let this love become more and more boundless. Equanimity is one of the 4 essential facets, with loving kindness, compassion, and joy. And it's one of what the teachings say form the entire aspiration of compassion, those 4 together. So I'll say it again, the 4 boundless essential facets of compassion: the equanimity, loving kindness, compassion, and joy. So the all-inclusive, unbiased view of equanimity is really the starting point and the basis of the path of compassion. You will find that this practice unseals a spring of love, and that by that unsealing in you of your own loving kindness, you will find that it will inspire the birth of compassion. For as Maitreya said in one of the teachings he gave a Sangha, the water of compassion courses through the canal of loving kindness. So that was a guided meditation in a way, but it wasn't. We can actually do meditation on Tonglen a lot more formally, and it's good in a way because to practice it in formal sessions, because then as we get our compassion muscles exercised, they become a little stronger, and we become more able to use them in a situation that might be difficult, or at other times when we're not particularly thinking of anything, we all of a sudden might think of, oh, I can breathe in, I can breathe out, and think of this as sending compassion to others. So what I'd like to do now is just for us to settle ourselves in a position where we're feeling comfortable. So as if we're doing a small formal meditation session. So for that, we have our body straight, our spine straight. It's always in the teachings it says, if your body's straight, just a little stretch and then you relax. And if the body's straight, then the channels are straight. And if the channels are straight, then the winds and the air in our body can move freely. And if the winds are straight, then the mind can be straight. By straight, I mean unimpeded and clear. So your thoughts flow clearly. And if the mind is straight in that way, then we are really we can be really relaxed. We can say that we are relaxed. So beginning with that little bit of tension or discipline, the strength, that gives us the power, and it tunes our motivation that we're actually going to do this practice for the benefit of others and also for the benefit of ourselves. So now as you're sitting, just notice that you're breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. Don't do anything to it. Don't alter your breath. Don't manipulate it. Just notice. So Tonglen means taking and receiving, sending and giving. So the taking or the receiving is breathing in, and the sending, the giving, is breathing out. So we say that the Tonglen is our motivation riding on the breath. So we're just breathing in and breathing out. And as we breathe in, we might have a spot of something in our mind that doesn't feel quite right. So we breathe it in. And we allow it to settle in our heart. We allow it to be warm. Allow light to shine on it. And then as we breathe out, it has dissolved. And we breathe out a cool and happiness in that thought. This meditation, there's no magic, no magical spells, no summoning spirits or anything. It's a little bit boring, just an ordinary boring, Gom, the word gom in Tibetan actually means, it's the word that's used for meditation. It just means getting used to. So we have to get used to just sitting and breathing, getting used to our breathing in and breathing out, and the thoughts that come and go with our breath as we breathe in and out. So we engage with our breath, with things how they appear. And we connect in that meditation with things as they are, with the truth. So in Sogyal Rinpoche's book, he actually has 5 steps. So they're very similar to Pema Chodron's steps that are in Rinpoche's book, Living is Dying. Well, I'll just read through how he describes the main Tonglen practice. And you can do this as a guided meditation as I read. In the Tonglen practice of giving and receiving, we take on, through compassion, all the various mental and physical sufferings of all beings, their fear, frustration, pain, anger, guilt, bitterness, doubt, rage, and we give them, through love, all our happiness and well-being, peace of mind, healing, and fulfillment. So the first step is, before you begin, you sit quietly and bring your mind home. And then just As you bring your mind home, you think of compassion. Find someone, the spark in you, perhaps that's unsealing the spring, someone you remember who helped you find that love and compassion and made you feel love. So you summon and invoke the presence of all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and enlightened beings, because they're the ones that are reminding us of these things. They are the ones that have set us on this path for meditation. And through their inspiration and blessing, compassion can be born in us. So that's the first step. The second part, imagine in front of you, as vividly and as poignantly as possible, someone you care for who is suffering. Try and imagine every aspect of the person's pain and distress. Then, as you feel your heart opening in compassion towards that person, imagine that all of his or her sufferings manifest together and gather into a great mass of hot, black, grimy smoke. Now, as you breathe in, visualize this mass of black smoke dissolves with your in-breath into the very core of your self-grasping at your heart. And there, it destroys completely all traces of self-cherishing, and it purifies your negative karma and the karma of the person in front of you. Imagine now that your self-cherishing has been destroyed. At the heart of your enlightened mind, your bodhicitta is fully revealed. And as you breathe out, then imagine that you are sending out its brilliant, cooling light of peace, joy, happiness, and ultimate well-being to your friend who is in pain, and that its rays are purifying all their negative karma. And it might be helpful to imagine here, like in the way that Kshitigarbha describes, that your bodhicitta has transformed your heart or your whole body and your being itself into a dazzling, wish-fulfilling jewel. And this is a jewel that can grant the desires and wishes of anyone and provide exactly what he or she longs for and needs. True compassion is the wish-fulfilling jewel because it has the inherent power to give precisely to each being whatever that being most needs, and so alleviate his or her suffering and bring about his or her true fulfillment. So as we're breathing in, we imagine the black smoke coming into our hearts, and it's melted and dissolved, transforms our heart, and then we breathe out that love and compassion to the person in front of us. So the moment the light of your bodhicitta streams out to touch your friend in pain, it is essential to feel a firm conviction that all of his or her negative karma has been purified, and a deep, lasting joy that he or she has been totally freed of suffering and pain. And then, as you go on breathing normally, in and out, continue with this practice. And as you're thinking of that one person, think of others who are in the same situation as that person. And your love and your compassion extend outwards and unboundedly Might be just to the people in your house, the people in your street, the people in your city or your town. Might be to the whole country that you're living in. So that love just envelops the whole earth and then extend out to the universe. Just keep breathing in and out. So we're practicing Tonglen. We begin with one friend, and then that's how we begin the process to gradually widen that circle of compassion. Then we can take on the suffering and purify the karma of all beings that we come in contact with. And we give them all our happiness, our well-being, our joy, and our peace of mind. And this is the wonderful goal of Tonglen practice, says Sogyam Rinpoche. And in a larger sense, this is the goal of the whole path of compassion. So as you're sitting, just remember that you're breathing, remember where you're sitting. And give little thought of gratitude to all the teachers who have been able to have brought us to be able to come to this session today. Thanks, Zangmo. Back over to you.
Thank you so much. I haven't heard Sogyam Rinpoche's teachings on Tonglen before, so it was great to hear a different perspective. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I just say something about a little bit more in relation to the living and dying program? Is
Sure.
that time? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Sorry?
often when we're with someone who is dying, or a friend who knows someone who's dying, people become very confused and uncertain what to do. And at this point, this is for me when the practice of Tonglen is so much more useful and so helpful generally, because often, particularly if you're sitting with someone who's dying, there really is not a lot that you can physically do. You can't shut the door. They're actually going to go no matter what you do.
Yeah.
But if you practice Tonglen, then from the outside, it looks like, well, you're just sitting there and you're just breathing. Okay, that's fine. But because you have that spark of bodhicitta in your heart, you're actually breathing for and with that person who's dying in front of you. And even if that person isn't actually with you at the time, there's no boundaries. There's no, you don't need a visa to go and sit by the side of someone who's dying. You just have to think of them, and you're there with them, and you can send them that love. And I think what I wanted to talk about was that when I first started talking about Buddhism with my family, my mother especially, and she would say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about dying. I'm not going to die for ages yet." And then, well, you're my mother and you're older than me, so it's quite possible. I might have died before you too. You never know. So all this story was going on and around, and it was almost as if when you talk about it, as if you're invoking it, as if you're saying, look, by talking about dying, that means it's going to make you die, and really, that doesn't doesn't make sense. And in the same way of talking about suicide, you know, talking about suicide doesn't make people choose to go and take suicide, you know, and just to take their own lives. You know, talking about suicide doesn't make people do it. And so it's that thing of actually feeling like you're prepared, you're ready, you are not panicking because someone is doing something that you haven't done before. And face it, in this life, well, we haven't actually died before, but you know, I'm pretty sure that all of us are going to really do it quite successfully. There's no one, you know, everyone does die eventually. We're pretty sure of that. And you know, I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was saying, "Oh, I don't like talking about dying." I said, "Yeah, I know, but it probably is going to happen sooner or later." And I said, "Well, if you were thinking about going to Bali, then wouldn't you be looking at, you know, all the best flights to get there and the nice places to stay and all the places you wanted to visit? You know, you'd sort of do a little bit of research, you know." And I said, "Well, you know, you might not get to Bali, but actually you probably are going to die. So it's probably a little bit, you know, it could be a bit useful just to investigate some of the stuff around it."
Yes.
Anyway.
Thank you. Wonderful.
I think that's my, any questions or things that came up around the meditation? Yeah.
We're going to do questions at the end if that's okay. I've still got a section to finish,
Sure.
so people can either write them in the box or ask. Just got a few more minutes to go, but we won't be long. So I want to continue with a little bit more about loving kindness practice. So sometimes the formal practice of Tonglen can seem too much for people, and that's absolutely fine. We do it when we can. Not everyone's drawn to it. Not everyone feels they can do it at different times in their life. So there's other practices to support opening our hearts. Equality practice is a way of connecting with others and realizing that we're all in the same boat. It's the human truth that every being, just like us, wants to be happy and avoid suffering. This is universal. So we can do this on the spot. You might decide you're going to do it whilst you're driving, watching the news, grocery shopping, for an hour, for a day. You choose. We see or meet another person just like me. She wants to be happy and not suffer. We use this in normal situations and in difficult situations. Just like me, they want to be happy. We can imagine what it would be like to be in someone's situation. This is also a practice. We can do Tonglen on the spot, which we've already spoken about. For example, you see a screaming, crying child in the supermarket with their mother. Right there, you breathe in the pain of the distressed child and you breathe in the discomfort of the mother not knowing how to calm things down. You breathe out ease or whatever feels appropriate. We can wish people well as a practice on the spot. May you be well and happy. Anytime this can be in our hearts. It's a very helpful thing to have around people who are dying and their family and friends. We need to have all of these tools, whichever one resonates. If we find ways of practicing it all the time, it's then much more easy and personal for us to be able to apply it to difficult situations. When we stay soft and open, it supports others to stay soft and open. Loving kindness, metta, is a feeling that blesses others and oneself with the simple wish, be happy. Joseph Goldstein refers to it as triumph of the heart. The Japanese poet Isa expresses this open-hearted feeling so well. In the cherry blossom's shade, there's no such thing as a stranger. The Buddha identified loving kindness as one of the essential qualities of heart that carries us to awakening. He encouraged his disciples to develop it and extend it as healing blessings to all universal beings, and taught the Metta Sutra. Even as a mother protects her child, her life, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart one should cherish all living beings. The Buddha shows us the direction and encourages us to open our hearts. The boundlessness of this. Wow. We allow things to be as they are and still welcome them into our hearts. This also includes our attitudes and judgments towards ourselves. The first Bodhisattva vow, countless beings suffer. I vow to liberate them. Anytime we feel the wish to help others and then act on it, we are in the territory of the first Bodhisattva vow. As we practice kindness, not pushing things away, we will naturally see more clearly. Our insight deepens and our understanding will become increasingly subtle. We see the crippling limitation of the assumptions we make about ourselves, the way we are imprisoned by our opinions, and how we trap others in the same way. The most compassionate thing we can do for others is to not trap them with our views. Behind all the personas of that person we dislike is a radiant heart just waiting to be remembered. If we see the potential for awakening in another, then perhaps for a moment they are more likely to discover that in themselves. The Bodhisattva, the awakened being committed to the awakening of others, understands that because of emptiness, there is no ultimate distinction between self and other. She understands that the universe is a seamless whole. At the most profound level of interconnection, the Bodhisattva is other living beings, and other living beings are the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva, rooted in primordial awareness, transcends time and has great patience, and so can say with confidence, countless beings suffer. I vow to liberate them all. So what I'd like to do to complete this session before we go to the questions and answers is that we do some loving kindness practice together, just briefly. I know I've done this with many of you before, but you can never do it too many times. So I like to start with the hand on the heart and the belly. For me, this really invites me to stay present and to be home with myself. You don't have to do that, but I find that helpful. And we're going to start with ourselves, so we'll be saying, may I be well and happy. So even closing your eyes to do this for yourself, to really tune in. May I be well and happy. May I be well and happy. May I be well and happy. And just be with that, how that is for you. And opening the eyes, taking in that we're 34 wonderful beings on here together. If you're on gallery, you can see some of those people, but know that we're all here together. So the next part is, may you be well and happy. So let's really notice that connection between each other, maybe the people close to us in the house, but especially to the Sangha that we're practicing with today. May you be well and happy. May you be well and happy. May you be well and happy. And now bring to mind other people you would like to include. Could be something you've heard about on the news, could be a next door neighbour, you choose, but we're taking it out into a broader context to all beings. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. So if there are any questions or comments about Tonglen and loving kindness practice, please pop them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. Even any comments about you, how you find yourself doing these practices. I know some people do them all the time, some people don't. Anything you would like to share? Looking, yes, I can see Tara. Yep, hold on. Would you like to unmute yourself? Thank you.
Okay. Here I am. Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Annie's. Yes, I'm interested in the Tonglen because I'm not that familiar with it. I've certainly heard of it and sat in, but I was interested to hear about doing it for oneself because I'm not familiar with hearing it expressed like that. And when you particularly the idea of breathing in this sort of darkness, when you're doing it for yourself, how do you relate to that, or how do you think about it, Gosha, when you do that, or if you do that, how do you picture that? Is it different to when you're doing it for others, or is it just the same, your own?
I think for me, it helps make it more real. But in the way that, and it's almost as if you're dividing yourself into two people, into the two parts of you. There's the hurt and suffering part of you, and there's the part of you that you know is good and has a really great motivation and is able to help, is able to be is able to express compassion. So it's almost as if you're working with those two aspects of yourself. So as you're breathing in, you're breathing in all the hurt person, and it's dissolving in the compassion, and then that is actually then transformed, and then as you breathe out, you're breathing that out to yourself, from yourself as the compassionate one. So I guess it comes from the idea of, well, you're really the only one who knows exactly how you're feeling, and so you're the best person then to work with that. And yeah, I think it just takes it to that extra dimension where, unless you can truly work with your own hurt as a beginning, you're not really able, fully put yourself in someone else's shoes. You've got that little bit of a holding back. It's a bit messy or a bit dirty over there, and you're not quite sure, if you really want to get in the mud. So. Yeah, I think we have to get used to that.
That makes sense, and I relate it to the same with the metta practice. I mean, which I'm very familiar with, and that's very comfortable for me. But I guess when I think about that visualization, if you like, for want of a better way of, or imagining of this dark cloud that's separate from, which coming from someone else, like even though there's, in the absolute sense, there's no divisions between yourself and others, but in our limited capacity, generally the way we view the world, there is that separation that we experience. So if we're breathing something from somebody else in, it's from the external, but if we've got coming in from ourselves, it's sort of already inside here in a way. I think of it like that. So I guess I was just thinking about whether, if you've done that practice, how do you experience that?
A lot of people at the beginning feel a bit of hesitancy because breathing in the bad stuff, it goes against everything. Like I spoke about that a little bit earlier. It's like it's like, you know, I don't want all that yuck stuff, you know, I want to get rid of it. But actually accepting it and acknowledging it is actually a way to get to know it further, and to not want to have to, not feel like you need to run away from it every time. It's actually just the breathing in and the breathing out just hold you in that space, and like just to actually feel that you've got your own ground while you're with that.
I guess
not trying to push it away.
No, I don't have that concern myself personally. I guess I'm, you know, some sort of parts of, you know, the things that arise in my mind, it's like, well, you know, that's not so wholesome, if you like. Yeah. But, you know, there's that sense of, you know, it's already in there. So breathing it in, you know, when it's already feels like that's bit of me, I'm going to sort of like breathing it out in a sort of light way. It just feels a bit just dynamically a bit different in my mind, I guess.
Yeah, it's another tool. It's definitely. Sorry, Zangmo.
I was just going to say, for me, sometimes if it's for myself, I don't worry about the dark smoke aspect. I just say hello to the sensation of what it is. Like I just acknowledge what it is, because I know it's there. You know, I don't need to.
Yeah.
So I think whatever resonates, it's more that not moving away from it, and then just allowing it to be liberated, but noticing it first. I think it's, especially because you do a lot of loving kindness practice, I think like you've already got that aspect in a way. So it's just another way of doing it.
Yeah, and I can sort of relate to what you've said a little bit in that way, because that's how it feels, you know, sort of sense.
Yeah, you don't have to find it and give it a color or whatever, like, you know, it's there. It might have a texture. It's more just not moving away from it, not wanting to escape from it. I think that's the key. That's how I notice it physically, because often there's that sensation arises and you want to do something with it. Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you. I'm going to read from the chat box. This is a personal message to me. I don't know if it was meant to be. Christiane, can you say this? I think this is for me. Just let me know. Here's a general question. May I do Tonglen for Bardo beings? From Yuralee. Would you like to answer that, Gosha?
Yeah. I mean, we do Tonglen for all beings, no matter where they are or what realm they are, whether they're alive or dead, whether they have physical bodies or not. So any being is can be an object of your love and compassion. Any thought can be an object of your love and compassion. And that maybe that's Tara, that was a little bit we were talking about, you know, any thought or any inkling in your mind can be a focus for your love and compassion.
Thank you. Can this Tonglen practice benefit others? Sorry. My thing jumped. Can this Tonglen practice benefit others if I am just a beginner, not a guru?
Well, how do we get to be a guru? Well, our gurus, our teachers tell us, well, you've got to start somewhere.
So yes, Tonglen practice benefits everyone, whether you're a beginner or not, because it's our intention. It's our intention to staying open, to wanting to be loving, and to not closing down to situations. I mean, we're just constantly training about how to stay open. So definitely as a beginner, in fact, you'll be less biased than some of us jaded people who've been around for a little while. You'll have less things about what you think's right and what you think's wrong. So it's perfect. You probably could come on and teach us about it, and it would be spot on.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you so much for another inspiring session. I'm currently accompanying my 80-year-old aunts in their moving process from Germany to Austria after 56 years in Munich. One of them is dying of pancreatic cancer, The weekly sessions on Living is Dying has become a most welcome supervision and consolation for me. Thank you and greetings from Vienna, Austria. It's a sunny October morning. Thank you so much for sharing that, really. That's from Swan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's a question here. Yeah, there's a question here about using psychedelics in therapy and reports saying it's similar to a near-death experience. Any thoughts to share about that? Can't really share anything about that. It's sort of still early days, and I guess it's not part of our topic. We can ask Rinpoche down the track.
He does say poison is medicine, but yeah, it's a skillful means. If you can transmute it as a skillful means, then perhaps, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's it for the questions. I have here we go, more thank yous. Excellent. I think we're going to do the dedication. Thank you, Shempen. I'm just going to mute you, Gosha, while I read it, or if you can mute yourself. This virtuous accumulation of merit we offer so that all obstacles dissolve, and that at the time of death each of us may find ease in dying, and swift rebirth in the pure land of great bliss, quickly gaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. If the material presented today has raised any concerns for you, it's suggested you speak to a trusted friend, your personal health professional, or your Buddhist teacher or instructor. Thanks, Shempen. So next week, Jakob and Jungtruk will be going through the sections of Rinpoche's book, Practices for Tantrikas, and Tantrika's Preparation for Death. So see you then. Thank you so very much for being here and making this happen. Wonderful. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Winnie.